Hello and welcome to another podcast episode of Essydo magazine. This episode is not going to be, it's going to be a quite sad one. It is about the earthquakes in Türkiye and Syria, a quite devastating development that was, that caught us by surprise in recent days. Nonetheless, I want to pick this topic up. But first of all, before we get started, I will put the link down below for donations. Essydo magazine is going to, or is collecting actually, donations, and I hope that you also help and support. The donations are fully directed towards the Turkish Red Crescent. So you can be 100% sure that the amount that you donate is also going to get where it or goes where it should go, and therefore you can also help internationally. So I'm going to pool the donations and direct them to the Turkish Red Crescent, and I hope that you all help and support, because this is what we need in those times. I think the topic in itself, there's little discussion about it. It's obviously something very disturbing, very devastating that has happened there in Turkey and Syria. Obviously, such a catastrophe was actually, I think, unprecedented before in this magnitude, at least for the last couple of years. So it is a very desperate situation for the people there. So once again, I invite you to donate and also support the rescue efforts there. But there are a few topics around this event that need to be addressed, because I also see Turkish media and the Turkish social developments around this catastrophe, and I really want to address a few things. And first of all, and I think this is the most important thing, and this is the most beautiful thing that I've witnessed for a long time, especially in this divided country of Turkey, is that we as Turks actually, for the first time, and for a long time actually, came together and acted in a unified way for most parts. Certainly there are also people who mix up political agendas with what is needed most, and this is unity. I think most of the Turks displayed this unity, and I'm extremely proud to call myself a Turk in this situation, because I've seen what we are capable of, even though politically and socially we are so divided, or we're divided over the past decades. I see trucks going from all over Europe to Turkey immediately, practically, right? They collected clothes, food, whatever was needed, hygiene products and whatnot. So they gathered it within an incredible amount of time and sent all the trucks there. There were also trucks in Turkey where a lot of people put stuff together and sent to the regions of Hatay, Gaziantep, and Kahramanmaraş. So I'm very happy, and I mean, this is something that we need to see in those times. You know, the beautiful aspects that this brings such a divided country back together, and this is beautiful to see. And I just encourage everyone to keep on going like this. To all the people who try to make political statements or make a political thing out of this, they need to be shut, right, immediately, no matter from which camp this is coming. And this is the next step that the Turks need to take, right? Whenever they hear something about, oh no, this is politically motivated, or there's bias in helping or so, don't just ignore it, shut them down, if needed violently, because this is no acceptable behavior in the situation. You know, people are suffering, and there is no explanation for it to mix it up with politics, right? There are political aspects. I'm going to turn to them later, but in this current situation, we need to ignore this completely and just focus on the task. This is getting as many people out of the destroyed cities as possible. Let's not forget about the animals, right? Also, very important to me that, or in general, it's very important that the animals are also rescued from there. So we need to focus on that. People who are rescued, they need to, have shelter, right? Because it's currently extremely cold there. And I can only speak for us Turks. I think so far we did a great job and mobilizing so much help and sticking together, right? So I want to stress that, and I want to say that we need to build on that. And I'm very proud because this showed that we are capable of it. But I'm also very thankful for all the support that came from all over the world. There are many rescue teams from Russia, from Mexico, from Japan, Korea, obviously as a brother nation of Türkiye. There are also United States, Germany involved. Thank you to all the rescue teams, to all the people who came there to help, and also to all the rescue dogs who help us actually in this very hard times, right? So there are political aspects to this whole thing. I mean, what I just talked about, these are the normative things, these are the positive things, and now when we turn to the more technical side of this catastrophe, there are obviously some points that need to be raised, right? I mean, it is common knowledge in Turkey that the construction laws are often violated for profit purposes. You know, there are actually quite suitable construction laws in place, but they are ignored because the richer construction companies, they are able to bend rules and also bribe the officials to get the construction contracts and also win public tenders. It is actually not dependent on the region, but just on the economic status of the company, and this is a quite common trait. I've read a lot of articles on this topic also before, right? So public tenders are often given to contractors that are closely related to some of the politicians or public officials, or they're bribed. And this leads to a huge quality loss in construction throughout Turkey. And this is not just confined to the area that is struck by this earthquake. I mean, this is very common knowledge in Turkey. You can ask whoever you want to, and they will confirm what I just said. But you can also read through a lot of articles on this topic, and you don't even need to read articles on that. You can also go through the list of public tenders of the Turkish government, and also check the links between the companies and the people who are giving out these public tenders. I mean, we don't need to talk about that this is not the proper way to do it, because especially construction laws in a country where you know that earthquakes are not uncommon. I'm not saying that they are common as in Japan, but I mean, every now and then in Turkey there are actually earthquakes. I mean, we can think back at the last one in Izmir. I think it was 2 years ago. So it happens. And you know it, the laws are in place, and accordingly, I think there should be no debate that the rules and regulations need to be honored, and you need to abide by the rules. There's nothing to it. I mean, of course, it's going to cut into your into your profit margin. But I mean, so what? This is definitely not something that we can discuss on. And I think pulling these information out now is the wrong time. But I also think that the accusation culture that has developed throughout the world, and I'm not just confining this to Turkey, but whenever we have political discussions, the accusation culture is a very toxic one. You know, saying you did this, and you did this. It was your job to do this properly and correctly. Such accusations, I mean, they're obviously warranted in this situation, but they lead to nothing, basically. And also, blaming politicians to a certain degree is not very suitable. What you need to do, obviously, is to consider your choices during elections, but also if you are living in a country where elections are easily manipulated and rigged, you need to seek ways to equally bend rules in order to get the right rules into place, right? You cannot fight injustice with just complaining and saying, oh, you did something very wrong, right? At some point, and I mean, I'm 100% behind the statement, you need to muscle up, right? You can also use violent means in order to do something good. I mean, it pretty much depends on the ends and not on the means at some point. Meaning, if you know these kind of things, you are equally responsible or accountable for the devastation that is happening in such a situation, right? There are various ways to do it. I mean, obviously you can muscle up in a violent way. You know, if gangs collect and know where those public tenders are, that they storm it and observe it, right? Everything is possible, everything is thinkable if the other side is willing to bend rules and risking thousands of lives, as we have seen here, and it happens. Then they should also they also must fear a violent response, because this is a violent act on the citizens of Turkey. If you give those contracts away to people who pay you the most money, and you know that they are not going to abide by the rules and going to construct buildings that can easily collapse easily, and I'm not just talking about earthquakes, it happens all the time also in a normal state, then this is a violent act against citizens, and therefore the citizens have the right to violently act against those public officials, and they should. This is what I think should be done, and what needs to be done. Simply complaining is not enough, as I said. But if we put it into perspective and think about what needs to be done, and I wrote an article actually in November, it was 8th November 2020. It's called Risk Mitigation in Complex Environments. This is the situation after you have established kind of a peaceful environment or a normal situation, like an everyday situation. What politicians actually need to do in order to implement good risk management. And I think risk management is very important to do before. So first of all, I started off to say, well, we need to concentrate imminently. Next, I talked about the public tender thingy and the corruption that is actually leading to these things, and what needs to be done by on the side of the citizens. That was step 2, and now step 3 is actually what we need to do after we have established a situation that is quite normal, when we turn back to everyday life. I know currently this is very difficult to think about, and this is also very inappropriate to think about now, right? I'm just giving you the perspective, or in kind of the foresight, what needs to be done after we overcome this catastrophe. Obviously, it's very bad, and currently there's no action plan that can be implemented imminently in the case of prevention of the next crisis. right? So we need to focus on something else. But nonetheless, I want to bring up some points, and I think this is very important to consider. So risk management is, in any case, not just having the resources to respond to risk, but more so, and I think this is the most important thing when we talk about risk management, are the processes. So, for example, let's think about all the other processes that are implemented on a daily basis and that are operational in governments, companies, or even small groups, schools, and whatever. Because they're practiced every day and on an operational basis, they're continuously exercised, we can shape and develop and improve those processes, right? So, for example, if you talk about someone who is going to court, it's a very clear procedure because it's practiced all the time, it becomes routine, and the system becomes more efficient. With risks, it's not that simple because they don't occur that often. External shocks are not that often that we can practice them. So, in order to do that, we need to artificially create situations or put ourselves into situations where we can train them or train ourselves how to react on those situations. For example, firemen. Of course, there are obviously days when there are no fires in, let's say, small towns and so on. But it happens more frequently, and the more frequent it happens, or they train, and the more frequently they train it in between those fires, the more efficiently they can respond to it. So what needs to be done in risk or catastrophe response is that the institutions, the government institutions and ministries, identify a couple of situations where they would need crisis response, right? And then they need to collect a list of people who need to be involved. And this needs to be a list of people who are basically obliged to participate in the process. Obviously, voluntarily participating people are counted on more in this situation, but there needs to be a list of people who can be contacted and need to be involved. For example, doctors, right? Or for example, firemen. And there needs to be, and this list needs to be updated daily actually, right? Or let's say weekly at least. So this is the first thing to do. You always have to be aware and know who to contact to involve them in a situation, to have the manpower immediately in such a situation. And this can be an earthquake, this can be a flood, this can be a nuclear disaster. This can be basically anything, unforeseen things. It can be a hurricane, tornado, whatever. Even in situations or in environments where you don't even know that they might occur, you need to be prepared and have those scenarios and those names ready, and those names and those people who are involved in the specific regions we are talking about, because the institutions are geographically spread. Those people also need to be informed, right? First step, have an updated list of people who need to be involved, readily available at all times. Second of all, the institutions need to implement processes. What needs to be done? Who gets the first call? What happens when certain calls arrive? For example, call comes in, big earthquake, buildings are collapsing. What happens next? Who gets the call? Who distributes the call? Who distributes the tasks? Who's going to be dispatched? How do we get to those people on the list that I talked about before? What needs to be done? What kind of equipment is moving from where to where? Through what, on what roads, in what kind of way? These are processes that need to be predefined. And then, obviously, after defining those processes, they need to be practiced, right? Periodically, ideally every month, right? So, or whatever the most logical time frame or periodical training schedule is. And this needs to be done because otherwise, even if you have the best people and they never trained the situation, when the situation occurs, they are not going to be respond to it effectively and efficiently. Yeah. So this needs to be done on a rolling basis. I mean, obviously it's resource intensive, but it's necessary. It also keeps the equipment working because when you have a huge cars. Or trucks that need to be involved and they are never used practically, right? You can also not rely on them when the situation occurs. So maintenance work of the equipment needs to be done. This also needs to be upgraded every now and then. So these are ongoing processes. It's not just because we don't have a catastrophe or any crisis situation right now that the departments and the institutions can sleep. You know, they still have an everyday job, and every day, while they are not in action, they need to train. We can think about the military. Every country has a military, but have you ever seen sleepy soldiers in any country? No, they're training all day, right? Soldiers are training every day. They're keeping themselves fit. They practice shooting. I don't know. They, also practice formations and stuff. Why do they do that? It's not because we have war every day and everywhere, right? And the whole militaries of countries are obviously not involved. But they practice every day because in the case of a war or a conflict, they are ready. So risk mitigation is pretty much dependent on how well you train in peaceful times, and we've clearly seen that this hasn't happened in Türkiye, where we currently really face big troubles. And as I said, right now there is no time to think about how we implement the most efficient processes and the risk mitigation structures that are needed actually. Of course, we cannot think about it right now. It's too late, right? We need to get as many people there as possible. We need to get as much food and clothes there as possible. Extremely fast. We need to pray and just be there for those people who are buried under their homes that they've worked for all their lives, and it's very sad. But we also need to set aside the political differences and the agenda, especially those people who say that there are biased rescuing operations. And this is definitely not the case, and these people just seek attention, which is, I'm not going to elaborate on what I think this kind of character trait reveals about you as a person, if you're somebody like that. And obviously we need to set it aside. And I cannot stress enough how touched I am by how we Turks responded to this, how much money was raised, how much help was made, how we were ready to support each other. I love to see that, and I know it's hard, it's difficult, and we lost many lives, obviously. It is a big catastrophe. What we cannot forget and cannot turn a blind eye on, that we did a great job sticking together in this crisis, right? And this is something positive to look at even right now, because this kind of gives hope, and hope is something we actually need right now, and every country and every society needs hope in times like this. Same goes also for Syria. I haven't elaborated on Syria. Obviously, my condolences also go to the victims and their families in Syria, since the proximity of the culture is not very given there, or I'm more involved into the happenings of what is going on in Turkey. I've disregarded Syria a little bit. Please forgive me. Obviously, the same applies to them as well. And I also hope that we can rescue as many people as possible there. For the time being, as I said, please donate. The link is below, and I still hope that I could give you some kind of useful input. But this is not really what this episode is about. This is also something I use to kind of express my feelings. So I hope to talk to you next time with in a bit of in a better mood, in a better situation. Though I don't think that this is going to be resolved very fast. Nonetheless, take care, stay safe. Thank you for your help and your support, and see you next time. Bye.